know that I'm not available for the next bit.
Yep. While you're doing that, it looks like we are now live. So hello, Facebook. We still have some people joining us, so we'll start a little bit slowly here. My name is Brad Bodis, and my friend and colleague, Patrick Slaughter, is joining me today. This is something a little bit new. We're including an attorney from outside of our firm. The topic today is going to be the intersection of bankruptcy and divorce. And Patrick Slaughter is a prominent and successful family law attorney, also does immigration work in Knoxville, Tennessee, and as I've just learned, also down in Florida, at least the immigration work in Florida. Bodis has offices in Alabama, Mississippi, and we have an office in Knoxville, Tennessee. My partner there, Cindy Lawson, says that your firm, Patrick, is one of the better ones in Knoxville, and y'all have a great reputation. So thank you so much for joining me today.
I appreciate that, and let Cindy know I'll pay her cut next week.
So this is the Facebook Live series that I started about 2 months back when this COVID thing kicked up. And we're doing these presentations once a week, Wednesdays at 1 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time, just to kind of keep people aware of what their options are. There's a whole lot of financial anxiety out there right now. People don't have an income or their income's changed. Bills are piling up. And it's a stressful time. So we want to be here to answer questions. The previous Facebook Live events that we have done are available at our firm's website, which is at the bottom of the screen. And I also have our firm's phone number. We are during the COVID pandemic. We are offering absolutely free consultations with an attorney. If somebody has questions, I think and I think Patrick will agree, we're encouraging people to be proactive right now. Don't just sit back and let things happen to you. Reach out, look for help, and we'll be glad to help you in any way we can. So today's episode is, again, to talk about the intersection of bankruptcy and divorce. You know, Patrick, back when I went to law school, I kind of thought from watching television that attorneys, any kind of legal problem that came up, you just hang out a shingle and I'll help you. And it's really not that way anymore. You really have to specialize. The law has become so complex. I know it is in bankruptcy, and I would guess it is in your area of the law also. But to recap, my name is Brad Bodis, and I'm with the Bond & Bodis Law Offices. We help people with financial problems in Alabama, Mississippi, and in Knoxville, Tennessee. And my friend and my colleague, attorney Patrick Slaughter, who's with the firm of Lefevre and Slaughter in Knoxville. Patrick's a family law and immigration attorney. Patrick, I looked at your bio, and I have to say it's both impressive and interesting. Not only have y'all been practicing for 40 years, but you are a magician. You're a black belt in karate, and I also see you an author. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself to get us started here?
I like to tell everybody that I am living proof that God has a sense of humor. Our firm started really back in 2014 when Jim Lefevre and I decided to work together. Jim had been practicing for a long time, since Methuselah was a baby, and he decided to bring a young upstart like me along, and we got started. But prior to practicing law, I was a magician for about 15 years. I performed at different corporate functions for the resort market, for Club Med resorts and just different resort chains. And I got tired of being on the road, so I decided I was going to be semi-retired. It was the worst 2 years of my life. Somehow I decided that it would be a good idea to go to law school, and they were crazy enough to let me in. And remarkably, I did well, surprised me and everybody else. When I graduated, I ended up taking the bar exam and I passed, much to my surprise, and started practicing law. And Jim had always been a family law attorney, and he kind of took me under his wing. And that's what we started doing. And for about 2 years, I went to court pretty much every single day. And, it was remarkable when you tell people the truth and you're prepared and you do the things that you tell them that you will do, no more and no less. Suddenly people start thinking you're really good. I don't know if that's deserved or not, but the practice just continued to grow, and we went from there. And that's how I ended up here where I'm at right now.
Well, I think when people tell you you're good, it's also a way sometimes people telling me I'm old. I've been doing this for a long time.
Exactly.
Been practicing bankruptcy law for 30 years plus, so you would hope that I've learned something by this point. But Patrick, the reason I wanted you to join me today, you and I both know, we've talked that even before this COVID-19 thing, bankruptcy and divorce, often people are facing these type issues at the same time. And now with COVID, with people having been shut up in homes, sometimes with kids at home, with little outside activity, with a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. All the projections are that in addition to financial problems, there are going to be a lot of domestic problems, and probably, unfortunately, even though I make a living doing bankruptcy and you make a living doing divorces, I think we both can say we'd rather people not face either of those things. My wife tells me, and I've repeated this multiple times, she says, you can't try to keep people out of bankruptcy. You're a bankruptcy lawyer. That's what you do. But it should not be your first option. And obviously, divorce shouldn't be either. People should try to work through their problems if possible. But it's not always possible. And that's why we want to discuss these important issues and answer questions. We've got some viewers here, and I'll collect these questions here in just a second for you and share them with you, Patrick. But just to recap for people that have joined us, this is now the seventh Facebook Live episode that I've done. We'll continue to do them on Wednesdays at 1:00 p.m. Central Time. And the previous episodes that I've done are all available on our Facebook page. Our firm's phone number and our firm website are at the bottom of the screen. If you need help, we are offering free consultations. Call us. We're doing the consultations, if you wish, from the safety of your home or office by phone or video. Patrick, why don't you, and I'll ask you to do it again later, but if people want to contact you in the Knoxville area, how can they reach your firm?
The best way to reach us is to call the office number. You'll be transferred to our intake specialist. Her name is Ashley, and that phone number is 865-637-6258. Again, 865-637-6258.
Great. All right. So last week, our topic was COVID-19 and its impact on minorities. It's sad, as sad as the situation is, there's been a disproportionate impact upon, minorities. And I had one of our associate attorneys, Monica Blanding, with me to discuss that issue. Today, we're discussing the intersection of bankruptcy and divorce. We're again fortunate to have Patrick, who's an accomplished family law attorney in the Knoxville, Tennessee area, joining us. So again, Patrick, people have been locked up for a couple of months now. You either love your spouse or you're learning maybe that's not the case right now. Um, yeah, I do have to say, for me, it's been great. I've worked a lot from home, and uh, we have one child still in the house. The other two are out, but it's been able to eat lunch with my wife, and it's been good for us. I know that hasn't been the case for everybody. Um, so what I want to do is I want to talk about the intersection of bankruptcy and divorce. And Patrick, if you can just give your thoughts on whether or not you expect an uptick in divorces in the coming months.
Oh, I'm pretty sure our phones, it started this week in Tennessee. The reopening started a little bit earlier than in some other parts of the country. And even prior to reopening, we started seeing a really huge uptick in the amount of web submissions from our website. And I'm pretty sure that's because people couldn't pick up the phone and call because their spouse was sitting in the same room with them. So they felt comfortable typing on a laptop, and we were getting a lot of inquiries then. And then now our phone's been ringing. I think Betty Joe and Bobby have been sitting in the same room together and probably consuming more alcohol than they're used to, and that can only exacerbate a certain amount of problems. And they're finding that little Jimmy, their child, that the teacher really wasn't the problem because they're having to suddenly become teachers, and all these things are combining to create lots of stress. And the number one thing folks have problems with that lead to divorce, of course, is money problems. And suddenly folks are looking at not having their jobs, or either unemployed or furloughed or what have you. And all these things are a pressure cooker that just force people to have to do something. So we're getting lots and lots of calls about, what do we do? Some people are definitely wanting divorces. There's also a huge uptick in child custody cases where suddenly there's issues about how do we exercise co-parenting time that was missed when we had these stay-at-home orders. We're seeing a lot of those types of issues, but the number one thing driving divorces really is the economic and money problems that folks are having to face as a result of either losing their job or just being stuck at home for a period of time.
I've been told that by my friends that do divorce work for many years, that financial problems are often the root cause of divorce. And I always encourage people to come in and talk and see what we can do about their financial problems to see if that helps them to rebuild their marriage. It's hard for an individual to acknowledge that they have financial problems, but I think if a husband and wife can put shoulder the blame or responsibility, or just it's a pride thing for a lot of people to acknowledge that they're unable to pay their bills, but if they'll deal with them together and explore the financial options that are available, I'm confident in the 30 plus years I've been doing this, there's a lot of marriages that would not have lasted if we had not filed a bankruptcy for people. So I think it's important to talk to a bankruptcy attorney. And again, folks, just because you call a bankruptcy attorney doesn't mean that you need to file bankruptcy. My first objective is going to keep you out of bankruptcy. But call. We're offering free consultations right now. Our phone number and our website are on your screen. Explore your options. Wife, sometimes your husband needs a nudge. Sometimes the male is the one that's dealing with the pride issue more than your wife. So give them a nudge and reach out together for help and see if you can address the financial problems and keep your family together. Patrick, what percentage would you say of people that come to see you for a divorce are facing financial issues also?
In one way or another, probably at least 95%. There are always issues of marital debt that have to be addressed during a divorce. And a lot of that marital debt can come in the form of medical bills, unsecured credit card bills, things of that sort. So every divorce that we look at, the finances play a role. And a big portion of the divorces, again, I would say in the 90s, 90% or more, deal with either lots of credit card debt or some other form of unsecured debt that they're trying to figure out who's going to take it, who's going to be responsible for it, how are they going to move forward. And we spend a lot of time. It's the first aspect of a divorce that a judge has to address in Tennessee is how to divide the marital assets, and that includes liabilities such as debts. And there's no easy answer for that. The other solution that folks don't realize is, even though a debt is assigned to a spouse in a divorce, just because a divorce court says, "Hey, spouse, you're responsible for this," that doesn't affect the rights of creditors. Creditors still have the right to go after both parties, even if there is a divorce decree in place. And there can be arrangements where one party's holding the other harmless and things of that sort. But why overly complicate your life if you don't have to? If there's an option, and I try to recommend this to folks frequently, if there's an option to discharge some of this debt, while you're married, you have greater exemptions and you can discharge a larger portion of this debt, especially if you have a child of a certain age, then why not explore that option? Like you said, it may give an option to keep the marriage together, but even if it doesn't, it puts them in a better position to be able to deal with this debt and move forward from the divorce more free financially to restart their lives. And that's what people are looking for. After divorce, they want to get their life back. And it's hard to do that when you have a lot of debt sitting on your shoulder, either through the divorce or what have you. So I recommend divorce or bankruptcy pretty frequently to couples who have, a substantial amount of debt, either through medical debt or credit card debt or what have you.
And what you said is important, that they look at filing the bankruptcy before the divorce. There are advantages to filing as a married couple. It's one bankruptcy case. You're paying an attorney fee once, you're paying court costs once, and there is usually an ability to protect more property and potentially get rid of more debt. And if the bankruptcy is filed following the divorce, without getting too deep in the woods here for our viewers, all types of new issues. There are certain marital type debts that you cannot discharge in bankruptcy following a divorce. So much better for a couple considering a divorce if they can do so to speak to a bankruptcy attorney beforehand. Now, the bankruptcy attorney may have a potential conflict of interest and may need some sort of waiver signed by the individuals with the advice and consent of their divorce attorney. We'd always ask our clients to reach out to their divorce attorney and make sure that that attorney is involved as much as necessary with anything going on in the bankruptcy court. Patrick, we have some questions coming in, and you ready to take some questions about bankruptcy and divorce?
Sure, let's go.
Great. So I think we just may have talked about this first question here, but which should I do first, divorce or bankruptcy?
My opinion, you want to handle the bankruptcy first for the reasons we just discussed. And one thing I want to add there, perhaps, I can hear people now, I can't stand that other person so much. I can't stand my spouse. I can't work with them. Well, if you're getting divorced, you can have your divorce attorneys. If you both have divorce attorneys, communicate for you with the bankruptcy attorney in a way that allows for some collaboration to do what's best for you in the long run. You don't have to necessarily get along with each other to take advantage of whatever options you might have available. So that's something you can consider. But I think doing the bankruptcy first is much cleaner. It makes the divorce a whole lot simpler, and there's less to fight about in the divorce. If we don't have this debt to fight about, you're going to face less consternation and you're going to have less in legal fees. So you're going to end up, a lot happier at the end of the day, as happy as one can be in this situation. But by doing the bankruptcy first, you're simplifying the divorce action, which makes everybody's life easier.
And just to elaborate on the point you made, often there's so much friction between the couple. One may say, well, I don't want to file bankruptcy. My spouse ran up all this debt. But the truth is, if it's joint debt, if you're both liable on it, it really doesn't matter because you're both going to be dealing with it um, after the divorce if there is no bankruptcy filed. And you made an important point earlier that I want to make sure a lot of our viewers understand. A divorce court can say between, husband and wife, husband has to pay these bills, and if he doesn't pay them, then the wife can seek indemnification or force the husband to pay them. But in the long run, MasterCard or Visa can still go after both of them. MasterCard and Visa aren't subject to that divorce decree. And if the husband or ex-husband is not paying the credit card bills, it's going to be hard for the wife to make him pay also. So if it's joint debt, again, the divorce can't rid you of your obligation on that debt. Consider filing a bankruptcy with the advice and consent of your divorce counsel, but before the divorce is entered into. All right. This one, can I file bankruptcy and divorce at the same time?
Well, you can, but just because you can don't mean you should.
Right. It seems to just complicate things. It's much better just to take care of the debt, as you said earlier, Patrick, and then undertake the divorce. Plus, who wants to be paying two attorneys at the same time anyway?
It's bad enough you got to deal with one of us jokers. You have to deal with two at the same time. And also, I'm a divorce attorney. I did take some bankruptcy classes in law school, but I'm by no means a bankruptcy attorney. And I don't want to be responsible for giving someone the wrong advice about a bankruptcy issue. And I'm assuming it's probably the same for bankruptcy attorneys.
Sure.
So you want to maximize the benefit of each counsel and try to do what you can to lower the amount of acrimony in your divorce, maximize the amount of forgiveness you may be able to get under the bankruptcy code. You want to do what's best for yourself in that situation. And often that's going to mean working together with your spouse, even to an extent you're not comfortable doing. And, two attorneys can coordinate things with each other. They can make your lives easier. And I think if, most family law attorneys are going to tell you the same thing, do what's going to make your life the easiest. Don't make things complicated. Trying to file two separate legal actions at the same time is going to keep you up at night worrying about both. Take care of one, the other is going to be there. And who knows, if you take care of the financial problems, suddenly your marriage might end up on better ground and you may not have to go forward with a divorce. But take the time to maximize your results and lessen your anxiety.
And, a point you made, sometimes it's difficult to deal with your spouse in a situation like this. But for God's sake, if you have children, do it for the benefit of your children, because both of your lives, number one, if you can get rid of the financial issues and hold the marriage together, that's the best for the family as a whole. But even if the marriage does end, if you can deal with those financial issues, it's going to make a lot easier on any children going forward. I should here give just kind of a general overview for our viewers as to the type debts that you cannot get rid of in a bankruptcy. You can never discharge alimony or child support payments in any kind of bankruptcy. Now, in a reorganization, a Chapter 13, Chapter 7 is a straight bankruptcy. That's where you just wipe the slate clean. You can never get rid of alimony, child support, or now any type of marital debt, any debt that you're ordered to pay as part of the divorce. You can't discharge that obligation in a straight Chapter 7 bankruptcy. When people reorganize under the bankruptcy code, although there are several different chapters available, it's usually for an individual a Chapter 13 bankruptcy. You can use a Chapter 13 bankruptcy if you're behind on child support or alimony to catch up what you're behind, but you can't get rid of those obligations. Importantly, though, Chapter 13 is different than Chapter 7. Other marital debts incurred through a divorce, like again, if Bob is ordered to pay the credit card debt, Bob can't get rid of that obligation in a straight bankruptcy, but he can through a reorganization, through a Chapter 13 type bankruptcy. So if you are post divorce and you're having financial problems, very important to talk to an experienced bankruptcy attorney. I expect, I've been doing this long enough, after hurricanes, after other natural disasters, a lot of people try to get into the bankruptcy business because they think there's going to be an uptick. There certainly is going to be an increase in bankruptcy filings and divorce proceedings in the months to come. So important to talk to an experienced divorce attorney or an experienced bankruptcy attorney. There are a lot of nuances in the law when these two areas intercede. So I think you'll agree, Patrick, it's just so important to talk to an experienced attorney. And our viewers should know that Patrick's phone number is at the bottom of our screen right now. So make a note of it if you're in the Knoxville area and you think you may need help with a divorce or an immigration situation in the future. All right. So how soon after the bankruptcy can I file for divorce?
I don't believe there's a limit to that. I think you could do that pretty much immediately, but I would tell you to wait if you're filing Chapter 7 until you've received notice of the discharge, or if you're filing in Chapter 13. Again, this is a little bit out of my area, so if I get this wrong, correct me. But I would wait until the plan was approved before I took some action, because until that happens, those debts are still there until they're actually discharged, and until there's actually a plan approved. I believe that they would still be the subject of litigation. So I would try to wait until after whatever action you take in bankruptcy is solidified the relationship to the debt that you're looking at trying to deal with.
And just to, from a bankruptcy perspective, what you're looking at is if you filed a straight Chapter 7 bankruptcy, it's usually best to wait until discharge. And the discharge typically will happen within 3 to 4 months after the bankruptcy is filed. Chapter 13, it would be unusual, an unusual situation where a couple would file a Chapter 13 petition together. That's where you file a plan of reorganization and divorce in the midst of that plan. Usually a Chapter 7 bankruptcy is going to be a better option in that situation. But again, everybody's facts are different. Make sure you consult with an experienced attorney. And again, we're offering free consultations by phone or video. You don't have to come into an office. You can do it from the safety and protection of your own home or office. Reach out to us or go to our website, and we'll make sure to set up a free consultation for you. So is it better to file as a couple or wait until you are separated? Does Tennessee have a legal separation status, Patrick?
We do. You can file for a legal separation. I hardly ever do it, and I rarely ever recommend it, because essentially you are likely to pay twice for a divorce, because filing for a legal separation, all that does is give you the right to live separately and apart from your spouse. You're still married. You can still be held accountable for adultery and things of that nature. I don't really believe there's a significant advantage to being legally separated. However, that being said, yes, you're still married, even though you're legally separated. And I believe, and again, I'd want to defer to a bankruptcy attorney to make sure I'm telling you, giving you the right advice. But I believe because you're still considered married under Tennessee law, even if you're separated, that you probably could still take advantage of certain enhanced, exemptions. But you'd want to talk with someone who files bankruptcies day in and day out to make sure that the divorce lawyers is giving you accurate information. A lot of us, like me, I took bankruptcy in law school, did fairly well in it, but that doesn't mean years later that that's still the law. The law evolves and changes, and things can be different. So, don't presume that one attorney knows every area of the law. We don't. A lot of days we wake up just hoping to get confused on a higher plane. And when it comes to something that's out of my wheelhouse, I'm going to refer you to someone, to help you get that information. But to answer the question succinctly, yes, I believe you can still file that while you're legally separated.
I think there's a misperception by a lot of lay people, people that are smart that didn't go to law school, as to what a legal separation is. You're right. Alabama also, in rare situations, and again, I haven't done divorce work in so many years, but there is a technical legal separation, but most people don't go through that. You go from being married to divorced. And the point we've made a number of times as we've gone through this is it's usually better to do the bankruptcy before the divorce, but to work with experienced attorneys to handle both the bankruptcy and the divorce. In fact, I know there are some attorneys that do both. I think it might be there'd be some big conflict issues if the same attorney was handling for husband and wife both the divorce and bankruptcy. As a matter of fact, Patrick, I don't think technically you can represent both parties in a divorce, can you?
Well, there was a change in law in Tennessee that does allow that to a certain extent because Tennessee, like a lot of other states, is trying to encourage collaborative divorce or collaborative family law. But I can tell you as a practice, I won't do it. I feel I have to know exactly who my client is, and I have a very strong obligation to that client to maximize their interests. And I don't feel that I can do that if I'm trying to represent both folks. And the objectives are different in a divorce than what they are in a bankruptcy. And I don't feel that I could adequately handle both types of cases for the same person, even if I practice bankruptcy law, which I don't. So I can tell you, and maybe I'm old school. Maybe there's some other, younger kids on the block that would want to undertake something like that. I wouldn't, and I don't know any of my, peers that would want to do that either, because a husband and wife's interest in a divorce are obviously very antagonistic. They're not the same, but their interest in a divorce may be very similar. I'm sorry, in a bankruptcy may be very similar,
Right.
but still be different to a certain extent. So I think it would be easier to work with a bankruptcy attorney who can represent both parties because the interests are more naturally aligned than in a divorce where their interests are absolutely necessarily opposite. So I wouldn't do that, and I wouldn't recommend other attorneys do that. And if I was a client, I certainly wouldn't want that.
We often in our practice have a man or a lady come to see us following a divorce, and we ask them who their divorce attorney is, and they'll tell us, and then we'll request the paperwork. And sure enough, they've signed something saying, well, Joe attorney represented my wife, didn't represent me, but they were under the perception. And I think that happens more with a lot of these mill type firms that just have a lot of people come in and sign paperwork. I don't know a divorce attorney, and I don't know that as you say, some of the new laws may provide for it, but I don't know how ethically it's possible to represent both sides in a divorce type proceeding.
I wouldn't do it, even if the law would allow me to do it. I personally would not. Especially if you see signs that are saying, $100 for a divorce action or something along those lines. Obviously, if the going rate for a divorce, even if it's an agreed divorce or a non-contested divorce, is $1,000 or more, and suddenly somebody's offering it for $100, you get what you pay for in most instances.
Right.
And if you don't understand the paperwork you're signing, and let's face it, most normal, regular, intelligent folks don't understand what they're signing in legal jargon. There's a lot of things that can be left open that weren't necessarily addressed. You want, in both bankruptcy and in divorce, an attorney that's going to sit down with you and go through and explain to you exactly what you're signing and the ramifications of signing such a document. And the thing that makes my I can't use polite language, makes me nervous when I hear of someone who's going to be a divorce attorney and a bankruptcy attorney for the same couple is how in the world would you not be one client be disclosing information that would be prejudicial to their case in terms of finances for the bankruptcy that couldn't later be used against them in the divorce.
Right.
I don't know. There are firms that certainly in certain rural areas and in different places that will try to do, we call door lawyers, that will take whatever comes in the door. And I just don't think that you can do that. For me, I would have an ethical problem because I couldn't understand who my client was and what obligation I would have to not only my client, but the rights of third persons. I think it creates an ethical conundrum that's just more easily avoided if everybody has their own attorney. I think with bankruptcy, it's easier to work collaboratively because the goal is so similar. We're wanting to discharge debt. But with a divorce attorney, I just don't think that's a good idea.
Patrick, I tell people it's a lot less expensive to pay to have a bankruptcy done right in the first place than it is to fix one that was filed improperly. I'm sure the same goes for divorce proceedings. One of the next questions is what does it cost to get divorced? And I'm going to be surprised if you don't answer that question the same way I answer what it costs to file a bankruptcy, but you go ahead.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I get asked that all the time. And for a contested divorce where people are not in agreement on how they're going to divide their assets, the property, deal with child custody issues, child support, and alimony, if those things are contested at all, I tell folks, I can't tell you exactly how much it's going to cost. It's going to cost as much as you want it to cost. It's going to cost as much as you want to fight and as much as you can afford to fight. I tell folks, the more you can get along, the more you can come to some agreements between yourselves, the cheaper the divorce action is going to be. And I encourage that. Everybody thinks divorce attorneys are out there poking the other one, trying to keep the conflict high. And I suppose there's some out there, but the truth is, we have plenty of clients. I don't have to earn a living off of a single person. I would much rather folks learn how to deal with their divorce as amicably as is possible under the situation to minimize their conflict, to minimize my heartburn, and to help resolve the issues that can be resolved by agreement. It's going to cost them a lot less money. They're not going to be laying awake at night worrying about what's going to happen, and they have more control over the outcome. Folks get confused. When you go to a divorce trial, you're asking a person who wears a black robe, who doesn't know you from Adam's house cat, to make a decision about how you're going to live your life after listening to you guys sling mud at each other for about 8 hours, convincing him that neither one of you should be treated the way you want to be treated. So I would tell folks, the short answer is I can't tell you how much it's going to cost, but you are absolutely in control of how much it will cost.
And be cautious of somebody that quotes you a fee over the phone without having met you or without really understanding your situation. We said earlier, you really, even though we make a living by filing bankruptcies and filing for divorces, you really don't want to go through either. And if you do it, preferably, you're only going to do it once in your life. Now, there are exceptions, but if you're going to do something this dramatic, do it right. Bankruptcy attorneys, most of us offer free consultations. Go out and interview a few attorneys. Make sure you're comfortable with the attorney you choose to bring you through one of the most important things you're going to go through in your life. And I think the same is true with divorce. It's never as easy as just signing the papers and never looking at them again in your life. You're going to need the help of that attorney down the line to enforce the bankruptcy discharge or to enforce the divorce decree or interpret it. You want somebody that's going to be with you in the long run.
Yeah, there's a saying in my office that clients often and usually end up with the attorney they deserve. I'm the first one to admit that I'm not the perfect attorney for everybody that calls my office, and we're pretty quick to say, there's somebody else I think would be a better fit for you, and we'll recommend them. But at the end of the day, you're absolutely right. You have to be comfortable with this person. You have to be willing to tell your attorney things like you have to be willing to tell your doctor. And some of those can be embarrassing or, downright uncomfortable. But if you don't feel comfortable with that person in the first place, you're not going to be able to have a level of honesty that you need to have with us in order for us to help you. And that's important. I read a statistic that a lot of folks hire the first attorney they get on the phone. That's probably a bad idea.
Right.
You need to find the person that's going to be able to, talk to you in a way that makes you feel comfortable, answers your questions, provides you with the information you need. And if you're not sure of that, keep trying until you find one of us. Lord knows there's plenty of lawyers out there. There's one that's right for you. Hopefully I'm right for a lot of folks, but I'm not the only game in town. There's plenty of other people out there. But finding somebody, that's willing to sit down and explain things to you in a way you're comfortable with is, should be the most important thing you consider.
And I think we can both say not only should you be comfortable with the attorney, but be comfortable with the attorney's staff. Because, my name's on the door, but God knows I couldn't get everything done properly and take care of the clients that trust us without great people on my team. And I'm sure the same is true with you, Patrick.
Oh yes, I joke. The name of the firm is Lefevre and Slaughter, and everybody says, "Yeah, your name's on the door." I'm like, "Yeah, that's also my wife's last name."
Yeah.
She is the office manager, the chief herder of all the cats, and I'm probably the chief cat. We have plenty of folks in the office. Our paralegal Debbie, other associate attorneys like Clay and Christian. They do a great job. Fortunately or unfortunately, my schedule can be a little chaotic, and they all make sure that I'm where I'm supposed to be and prepared to do what I need to do. But they're certainly able to help clients. And I think all lawyers, we rely on the folks that we have on our team to make sure that we do the things that we need to get done. Because, I've never met a lawyer who was any good who wasn't overly committed and overly busy. And it's the folks behind us that make sure that we get everything accomplished that we need to get done.
I learned very on when I was in law school and clerking for a firm that it was the secretaries and paralegals that knew what was going on in the office, and those are the people you need to get to know. But it's the same thing in retaining attorney. Yes, you need to be comfortable with your attorney, but be comfortable with the staff, be comfortable with the way you're treated on the phone, be comfortable with the way you're greeted when you come into the office. Whether it be bankruptcy or divorce or both, it's a very important step. It's going to have life-altering effects. Make sure you do it right. Make sure you use someone you can trust.
And along that line, be respectful of our staff. A lot of times folks will be very, very overly genteel with me, but then they will be horses behinds with, a staff member. And I can tell you that never goes over well. Not only does it hurt the staff member, but they talk to us. The nicer you are with a staff member, the more likely you are to get more information in a way. I'll give you an example. A lot of times a client will have a question and they will have to schedule a phone call with me for me to sit down and talk to them and answer the question. Or they can send my wife an email and she will get me during the day in a time that I hadn't scheduled and ask me the question and I'll answer it and she'll email back and the client doesn't even get charged for that. Where if they talk to me on a phone call that's taking time out of the day, they do get billed for that. So the kinder you are to the staff, the nicer you are to our folks, you get more, what's the thing? Yeah, you get more honey. I forget the saying, but we get more flies with honey. That's it.
Right.
Just keep that in mind, please.
Well, I'll go one step further, Patrick, and it may not be the best marketing, but years ago when I started my own firm, the best part about it was I get to represent good people. And if somebody's disrespectful to my staff, there's a good chance I'm not going to be representing them. Everybody that hasn't been through a bankruptcy, they kind of have this negative perception in their mind. And I'm sure it's the same with divorce law, that people going through a bankruptcy or people going through a divorce, that there's something wrong with them, that that they've done something wrong. And you and I know that's not the case. 99% of the people that come to see me are good, hardworking people, and something bad's just happened. It may be a health problem. It may be, they lost a job or they tried to start a business. And I want to help those good people. But I don't have time to help people that are trying to abuse the system or that are disrespectful to the people that I trust in my office. And I'm sure you feel the same way.
Oh, very much so. There is nothing that will get you discharged quicker from my practice than acting inappropriately with one of my staff members. I take that very, very seriously. In fact, in my fee agreement, it's one of the first things in bold letters about that. And I think most lawyers are the same way because we feel a certain amount of obligation to take care of our staff. If you want to yell at me, you can yell at me. That's okay. I've been yelled at before.
Right.
If you want to call me names, that's okay. You just going to have to get in a long line to do it. But there's nothing that a staff member could have done to deserve or invoke such ire that you need to raise your voice or use inappropriate language with the staff member. So yes, be respectful. We all have the same goal. We all want to help you accomplish what you're wanting to accomplish if we're able to do that. And if we're not able to help you accomplish that goal, we're going to tell you, I can't do it, or it's not able to be done. And if you don't want to listen to us, there's a phone book full of people that you can call. But I'd also caution you, there's also somebody that's really happy to take your money. If a lawyer tells you something's going to be expensive, you should believe them. It's like if a doctor tells you something's going to hurt, you should believe them.
And I think, go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's essentially it. Be careful, listen to what's being told to you, be respectful, and understand that it is better for somebody to give you information that doesn't make you feel very good than to just give you information to get your money.
We both understand, just to clarify what I said about how you treat the staff and your attorney. We both understand, whether it be bankruptcy or divorce or both, it's a stressful time. It's an emotional time, and there are going to be situations where you may be upset. We understand that. And there may be a single instant. I've had clients call and say something and then call right back and apologize. We understand that. But don't be disrespectful as a rule to the people that are trying to help you. We are so thankful to have the opportunity to help people going through tough times. And again, 99% of the people that come to see us, even though they're going through a stressful situation, are good people. Something bad has happened to them and they need our help. Patrick, I can't thank you enough for taking time out of a busy day at a busy time to join me today. I know this has been helpful. I want to remind people, if you need help with a domestic divorce situation, a child custody issue, immigration issue, I believe your firm also does some criminal work. Is that true, Patrick?
We do, but again, limited criminal work. I don't do sex crimes. We don't do violent crimes. We do property crimes, misdemeanors, things of that sort.
Well, if you need help in the Knoxville area, certainly family law, divorce, child support, immigration, reach out to Patrick. His phone number is at the bottom of our screen, 865-338-5425. If you are going through a tough financial situation right now, as a lot of good people are, be proactive. Don't sit back. Don't just let yourself get beat up. Reach out, seek qualified help. Just because you call a bankruptcy attorney doesn't mean you need to file bankruptcy, but you need to know all of your options. An attorney, whether it be a divorce attorney or a bankruptcy attorney, Um, we have gone through a lot of training, a lot of school, continuing legal education. We have the experience in this area, and we're willing and able to answer your questions. At this time, we're offering absolutely free initial consultations with an attorney from your home, from your office. You don't have to leave the safety of where you are right now. We'll do the consultation by video or phone or whatever's comfortable for you. Just a reminder, we're doing these Facebook Live presentations during the COVID pandemic. We'll be doing them every Wednesday, 1 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. Both this presentation today and those that I've done previously are available in our Facebook pages so that you can log in. If you have a friend that has questions about divorce or bankruptcy and you think they might be able to learn something from this presentation, please get them to our Facebook page where this will be available for them to listen to later. You have my firm's phone number and website at the bottom of the screen where the website has a lot of additional information. Patrick, do you want to share your firm's website?
Yes, you can Google Lefevre and Slaughter, and Google will find us. But the website address is actually under my former partner James Lefevre's URL, which is James R. Lefevre. It's LAF as in Frank, E as in elephant, VOR, Victor Omega Romeo.com. But if you just Google Patrick Slaughter or Lefevre and Slaughter, somebody on the internet will point you in our direction.
Well, for that matter, call our office and we'll get you to Patrick and make sure that you're connected with them, because if you need this type help in the Knoxville area, he is the guy to go to. I want to remind the people that have been gracious enough to listen to us today and that may view this in the future, reach out, be proactive. These are tough times, but you've got to take care of yourself. I've made some notes here. Choose to take that first step. Choose to take control of your future. Choose to take action to protect your finances, protect your family. Thank you so much from both of us. Good luck and God bless. Thank you.